I'm not asking you like in terms of the debate. You call yourself the godfather of the red pill. You
call myself the godfather of the manosphere, okay? Other people have called me that.
Okay, great. That's very.
Do you understand?
Okay, so as
godfather or grandfather of the man, which one is it?
Whatever it is, the old guy of the manosphere. What is your definition of high value man? This is the #1 talked about topic on all of these shows. So I want to get a clear definition from you. What is it?
You tell, again, it depends on the person. It depends on the culture. Depends on the.
Videos have been going viral the past few days because the self-proclaimed godfather of the manosphere and the man often dubbed as the godfather of the red pill couldn't define what he has essentially been talking about for the past 20 years, which is the question that is endlessly discussed, debated and preached about on all forms of social media nowadays, in particular in the manosphere, the red pill space and on modern dating shows, which is, what is a high value man? And the honest truth is that there will never be an exact definition for it. However, with this clip going viral and Sneeko and Destiny, who are two content creators who fall into different categories, with Sneeko leaning towards the red pill and Destiny, well, I don't even know what you describe Destiny as, to be fair. Nonetheless, they often conflict and debate two very contrasting views on what a man should be and the relationship dynamics between men and women. Nevertheless, we got to witness them join forces and seemingly roast and grill Rollo for being unable to define what he has essentially been speaking about for the past 20 years. As much as I admit they did make him look almost foolish to an extent, to most viewers at least, as you can see from the comments and reactions online. Again, though I understand the fact he's been preaching about it for 2 decades and can't define it, which does essentially come across like, what the fuck, bro? Like, you keep telling young guys do XYZ to become a high value man, but can't define one. The reality is, he's actually right in the fact that you can't actually definitively define what a high value man is. You cannot, and nobody ever will be able to define definitively what a high value man is, and the reason is simple. It's because the notion of a high value man is philosophical in nature and therefore is a social science. Social sciences are soft sciences, meaning they are subjective by nature and culture, unlike hard sciences, which are objective. An example of a hard science would simply be distance. Can you objectively measure point A to B? Yes, you can, and the answer is universal. In contrast, can you objectively measure a high value man? No, not really. What is deemed a high value man in the UK can be completely different to what is deemed a high value man in a country like Saudi Arabia, for example. Or more importantly, those who follow specific religions more adamantly would 100% consider what is classed as a high value man entirely differently than somebody who doesn't. Stick with me here because it will all make very clear sense to you shortly as to why. Now, of course, there are going to be certain qualities a high value man attains which, universally speaking, most would agree on. For example, enough money to be able to live life financially free. However, you cannot put an exact measurement on the amount of money. Another general trait of a high value man agreed on by most is being physically fit to an extent. And again though, you cannot put an exact measurement on it. And the third one, which any high value man should essentially have, which all can essentially agree on, is having a network of other high value men with business and personal connections. Aside from those 3 common factors, can you really say there's anything specific that defines a high value man? One that you don't see people disagree on? No, you don't, not really. So essentially, if you have these 3 traits, then you could be considered a high value man, right? However, as we've seen over the past few years in places like the manosphere or modern dating shows or just people online in general, is that despite these being the fundamentals of a high value man, people will still disagree and argue and debate and cannot come up with a clear definitive definition of what a high value man is. Yet, it remains one of the most obsessed over discussions of our modern times. Is that a bad thing? No, I wouldn't say so necessarily, as it is inspiring men from all over the world to aim to become the best versions of themselves, which ultimately I believe is one of the best paths a man can take. The one where he aims to try and improve in all realms of his life. But this is where many can become misguided and even unfulfilled. Because what I've noticed in all of these high value man discussions, very rarely, if ever, does anybody speak on or preach about intrinsic values. It's all merely external value. Because at the end of the day, money is material, it's external. Fitness and body is external. And your network itself, although it's something personal, is still not an intrinsic value by definition. Therefore, that literally means you can be an absolute scumbag, evil even, and be considered a high value man by these metrics. Or more commonly, you can be an obnoxious, boastful, arrogant, self-centered person and still be a high value man. On paper, you meet the standards, but on the inside, in your heart, in your soul, you're the lowest of the low. This is the trap many young men are falling into on this desperate pursuit of becoming a high value man, doing absolutely anything for the money, which essentially is the most important aspect of being a high value man, as money gives you options and autonomy over your own life, which I do agree is 100% the most important aspect. But this means many are willing to trade their morals and principles in order to gain it, or they are willing to make themselves look like obnoxious, arrogant pricks online, which is essentially what Andrew Tate did. But given his background and accolades, it actually held weight, and is one of the reasons I could see through the majority of his early online antics that it was mainly to troll and in order to garner attention and then monetize. It was unique and original because it was his approach, and ultimately he has been able to impact millions of young men in a positive way off the back of this. But due to his large-scale impact and influence, we now have all of these young guys, many of whom have barely been rich, let's say for even 2 years, jumping online, acting like God's gift to earth, shitting on others and putting themselves on a pedestal, all in order to gain attention. And what do they ultimately say when called out for or backed into a corner when shit goes pear-shaped? Oh, it's just for attention. I'm trying to get attention and then motivate with my message. Sounds familiar, right? Now, these same guys, I guarantee, are going around believing they are high value men because they have the 3 general attributes, or at least the money. And in their minds, they have every right to believe so because nobody else is influencing them or explaining to them. The reality is it takes far more to be a truly high value man. Value cannot and never should be only defined externally. True value comes from both external and internal, which I must say, I do see a shift in the tide with many people like Tate or other popular manosphere type influencers like Hamza, Imam Ghazi, but that's all really. But they are speaking more about intrinsic values such as loyalty, respect, kindness, mindfulness, dignity, humility, sexual discipline. These are all the qualities that would make someone hold true, complete value. Sure, acting the flashy loudmouth on social media will get you your attention and funnel people into whatever private network it is that you've created that you can then sell products or services to them with. I get it, it's for money and online clout and to gain a network. But this clout and attention comes at a price. The lifestyle you portray, surrounding yourself with 3 or 4 type women, ultimately also comes at a price. Again, as we've seen very recently. And again, can you blame these guys for following this path? Not really, because this is what they've been preached on, listened to, and just consumed by for the past few years about what it takes to be a high value man. Have an abundance of women, have money, have a network, and be somewhat physically capable. Khalas, high value man. Now, it may seem I've gone a little off topic here, but I haven't. It's all relevant because it links back to exactly what I was mentioning, that you cannot ever truly define a high value man. People like Andrew Tate would be looked at as classless and an embarrassment with no dignity in certain cultures due to his online activities, regardless of his wealth, fame and accolades. But at the same time, people from those very same cultures would be drawn to him and think he actually is a high value man despite their cultures going against it. Why? Because it's all subjective. Some people will consider Elon Musk a high value man, others not, like Rallo himself mentioned in the debate. Some people would consider someone with multiple girlfriends a high value man, others won't and think it's degenerate and that he should be married, then he will be one. This topic will forever be subjective and it will never change. And that is why I believe the best approach to becoming a high value man, knowing the 3 fundamental aspects to it, money, health/fitness, and your network, you need to ask yourself what are your principles, morals, and internal values. Only by truly knowing this can you ever truly look yourself in the mirror and say you are a high value man. And funnily enough, you'd be surprised that if you conducted your pursuit of becoming a high value man and looked at it from this way, across the board, you would have more people who consider you a high value man. Why? Because you're living in your truth. And people love someone who actually portrays true human intrinsic values such as dignity, humility, respect, kindness, as well as all the external, such as the money, your physical appearance, and who you are around, who you take pictures with, who you go to dinners with, who you can call for business meetings, etc. The combination is the best pursuit, honestly. Like, if you really think about it, people with the most respect in society are the ones who have them all. On that note, I'd like to leave you with one question. If external value is the be all and end all, would you consider the man who didn't relentlessly pursue money, but instead lived a modest life, helped others whenever he could, looked after his family, was a man of God, was respected by those who knew him, loved by his family and friends and community, would you not consider such a man of high value? I'm pretty sure you can all say that man is certainly of value. So just think about that. If you're someone embarking on the journey of becoming a high value man, really it's a very common journey nowadays, take into consideration that a man makes the money and money doesn't make the man, and that true value comes from within ultimately, and how you actually treat others and portray yourself, as that is the value that will eventually satisfy you in this life, not the cars, the houses, the jewelry, the countless hoes, which, funnily enough, every single super successful person ends up saying. Do you think that's a coincidence? Why do you think people in the end, like Andrew Tate, convert to Islam? Because the rest of it is all just chasing a hole of hedonism. Anyway, that's all from me for now. Remember, no matter how tough life gets, we always have a choice. And as usual, I hope this video serves you. Love.